Okay, welcome. Today is January 28th, and we are on Module 4. Can you see my screen?
I just see a picture of you.
Oh,
That's
you
the
don't
only
see the
thing.
screen. Okay, let me go ahead and share um, this right now. Okay, now can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so in this module, you're going to be able to understand the origins of one's personal belief system. I know that we did this specifically in the beginning, but this really allows us to understand a little bit more and specifically on mental tapes and stereotypes. So we're going to talk about mental tapes. Mental tapes are subliminal messages. These are messages that are subconsciously in our minds, whether we were raised with these, whether these have to do with traditions or grandfathered into us based on our cultural beliefs. And then also mental tapes and stereotypes start being influenced by media, by our environment, and by the cultural context in which we really understand where we come from. It often begins with our thought process, our feelings, and then our behaviors. But as we go through more experiences in our lives, our mental tapes and our mental understanding really start to mature and change. It's the way that we really are able to relate to one another. And society, according to Key, ignores the fact that individuals do not represent the entire group of people who seemingly share the same identity. So a lot of times we automatically associate one idea, one experience, whether that be positive or negative, and we subconsciously make that into an entire subgroup. And so often we see our students do this, we see other staff members do this, and unfortunately, this is a form of discrimination and biases. So I wanted to also go into this. I'll go ahead and open this link. This is from Bass and Oblio. Probably a lot of you have read Bass or know about Bass, 1985, Transformational Leadership and Organizational Culture. Bass really talks about how the organization's culture really develops by the norms of the individuals that are involved. As transformational leaders change, the organization's cultures, their vision, their overall revision of shared assumptions and norms also change. So effective organization requires both tactical and strategic thinking. So really looks at what is a transformational leader and the 4 characteristics that they help to include. These factors include idealized influence, inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, individualized consideration. So some really good stuff in here. I know that for most dissertations, if you're talking about leadership, you might want to take a little bit of a closer look into what transformational leadership is and how you can incorporate it into your own dissertation, or just try to maybe use some of those influential ideals in your own character development. Stereotypes, to talk a little bit more about stereotypes. Unfortunately, with current educational literature, a lot of times these types of stereotypes are actually segmented into the literature and the composition that we're actually using in our classrooms. It often predicts educational failures for subgroups and really puts the spotlight on predominant, more westernized cultures. And so if we do not avoid stereotypes, we're masking commonalities shared by these cultural groups. And it goes a little bit more into that. The main sources of mental tapes, once again, these emanate from information, stories, and facts and myths. These are preconceived notions within our mind. And like I said before, often we have these mental tapes that are just subliminally put into our heads, even though we don't think it. We do have them. They are implicit biases based on our environment and those that we are around. One of the things now specifically are the cultural differences that we see in the adoption of learning beliefs. This includes critical thinking and peer learning. A lot of the learning now is now taking place in different aspects, whether that be online, whether that be through a hybrid modality, but the modalities are changing. And so within the modalities changing, it's important for us as educators to understand how we can keep up with the 21st century and these learning modalities. You know, racial and ethnic issues always have and always will be something, unfortunately, that needs to be discussed. And so one of the things that this all revolves around is social equity. And through the equity lens, we can understand how to fight racial and ethnic issues. So there's some information about what that means. This also goes into advertising and ethnic issues. Once again, advertising on popular culture is really rooted into stereotypical and discriminative practices that needs to be diminished. Goes a little bit back here on cultural disapproval and some of those discriminative practices. The next impact that we're going to be talking about is the impact of using conscious thinking. Conscious thought refers to the cognitive and or affective task, relevant processes individuals are consciously aware of while thinking about a task. For example, an individual can compare two different ideas for possible purchase and evaluating both ideas. So it's really having more of a cognitive thinking of how is this going to affect, what are the pros and what are the cons. And so conscious thought is used to help facilitate interaction with cultural and social norms by reshaping unconscious processes through input from culture. If we can use conscious thinking, we can teach conscious thinking, and try to implement conscious thinking in all of our curriculum development and the ways that we work with our students. I think that that would really help society move forward in a positive light. One of the big buzzwords for a while, and I think it still is cultural competence. What is it? Cultural competence is about fostering effective and productive working relationships in cross-cultural situations. It's integrating diversity and cultural competence and knowing that this does not happen naturally, that this has to be strategically planned in order for it to work. This is taking every single individual within an organization, no matter their rank, no matter how long they've been there, and no matter their task, and allowing them to have input and allow them to raise questions and really help shape the organization. And so by having that kind of cross-discipline interaction and discussions with one another, it starts to make sense for the culture. Everyone feels like they are involved in the decision making and everyone feels like they are a part of it, which in turns then creates more of an infrastructure of learning and development and creates a unified support system. One of the questions that I've heard before is, how will your future assumptions be affected by what you have learned? Well, once again, you may need to improve social judgment and perspective skills. You may need to think about how your assumptions really affect the way that you shape your thinking and the way that you are working with others. I know that if you're writing an argumentative paper, for example, then you're going to have your argument and you're going to think about what the reader's assumptions are. It's the same with our cognitive thinking. We need to be aware of our assumptions and make sure that we understand what those assumptions are before making any kind of huge decision, especially when it comes to the lives of others with student interaction. So one of the things you want to be aware of is how we can break those stereotypical ideals and really take into account everyone's point of view. There's ways to form new mental tapes. The more that you learn, and in this, this short 7 weeks class, we're learning so much from one another, and really the dialogue really begins in the discussion boards, using those personal examples exemplified and solidified by strong papers and strong arguments are embedded. And that's how we really form new mental tapes, by learning from other people's points of views and their others' experiences. So really looking at what's worked and reshaping our mental tapes. Just like anything else, we can reshape our ideas, we can think differently, and we can challenge ourselves to really improve our thinking skills by looking at every point of view and not just getting forced to think the same way. And once again, in order to create new mental tapes through education, it must be understood that it may not coincide with some people's experiences or groups. So you have to think positively. You have to start thinking of things more on a specific level and hear from others. If you're curious about something or you don't understand something, and usually it's because we just don't have experience with it, it's really questioning it and really getting to know what that is. Sometimes it can be scary to do new things, but it's really about the change and having the ability to recognize that that might be a weakness of our own. Once again, this is just how, a natural and strong tendency to make assumptions about people different than ourselves. This just happens, but we can confront those issues. Assumptions may not always be right about the various cultures and encounters, and we need to really, really challenge ourselves to really make sense of why do I feel that way, and not make rash decisions based on these types of stereotypes. So I challenge everyone in the class to think about what is your stereotype if you have one of someone or something, and try to challenge that and see why you've thought of that. Think back at where you first heard about something. Was it from a negative or positive experience of your own, or was it from a family member? Was it from a teacher, or was it from an employee or friend? Or was it from social media or from the media in general? It'll really start to make you think about, why you think that way. There's a lot of references there. I also have quite few good articles here that I will post. This first one is benefiting from diversity, how groups coordinating mechanisms affect leadership opportunities for marginalized individuals. This is from Leadership and Social Transformation. I think that this allows you to see that members often exert stronger social influence and thus have greater leadership opportunities relative to members of marginalized or underrepresented social categories. It looks at what and how can we promote leadership diversity. The next one that I will post, and I'll post all of these, this zip drive, we're just looking at a practice-based theory of diversity and equity, or in parentheses, inequity in organizations. What does it mean to actually be equitable? And more of a real look at what diversity actually is. And then the last one that might be helpful, and once again, you can use all of these in your paper, your final paper for this week, and you can also use it in the discussion board. This looks at a global perspective on diversity and inclusion in work organizations. And so it may, it's more of a, based on a human resource management or tourism perspective, because I like to bring that perspective in as well, because we do have individuals in this field, in our class that may not work in K through 12 or higher education. So this would also be helpful as well. This week, you will take your outline and your references and your abstract from week 3, and you're going to make your paper. I encourage everyone, and Stephanie, I know that you did that, but I encourage a few of you did not choose an actual place that you are going to be identifying. So you want to make sure that you're actually identifying not just a place, but the actual group of people that you're going to be looking at. And so if you can do that, it's going to make it a little bit more specific, and it's going to make it more real, because we want to make sure that, it's understood that at the end in week 7, you're going to have to make a remedy of what you would do to make it more culturally diverse and make a diversity plan. So if you don't have the actual individuals that you're going to be looking at, it's going to be very difficult to do the next part. So, if you want to look at maybe at your, you're looking at a school district, so that's going to be fine. If you want to look at administrators, or if you want to look at the school district at whole, or if you want to look at teachers or parents, whatever, you can do it that way, or you can do it as a whole. But I just want people to know that it needs to be a specific group, okay? And then we also have our discussion. Our discussions, once again, have been really, really delightful semester. So I appreciate that. And we're just looking at diversity awareness. And you can just kind of bring your own thoughts on about it. And what do you want to commit to within these 30 days? And really think about how you're going to challenge your stereotypes, challenge your assumptions and your mental tapes to think differently and think something that you haven't thought before. So you can input all of this, and I've enjoyed reading all of yours in the past few weeks. So that's all I have today. You can go through the information a little bit more, and I'll post those other journals to include. Do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, great. Okay. And if anyone does on the essay, feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to help. Otherwise, I will look forward to the discussion boards. I'm going to get in there tonight and read some more of your guys's. So thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.